Okay, so we're gonna start talking about the GFEs, the Generic Fundamentals Examination. But before we go and do that, I like to talk about how the Nuclear Regulatory Commission license nuclear reactor operators. So the NRC, they kind of like oversee all the licensed individuals to operate nuclear power plants, so they can be in the control room and operate the reactors. And that is not also, and that also includes research reactors as well. So they are in charge to do that. So they license, as of July 2019, around 3,900 NRC license operators. So I think that's a lot of people. Okay, so but what else do we need, like, to get, like, if we want to become reactor operators? What do we need, right? So they have here in their website like a lot of information about it. So we go to the licensing process in their website, and let's say, okay, I'm a new reactor operator. How do I get my license? This is my first time. Here it says that applicants should use the most recent version of the Form 396, which is an electronic form, but they can also use Form 398. And then this form, we can see very briefly, like, what do we need to have my license, right? Let's go to that form. This is a form that, like, if you're gonna get your license, you need to fill this up. And you will get your information, your name, last name, birthday, all that stuff. But in the previous page, we didn't read, but and we can just go back briefly. It says, for your awareness, we are planning to issue a revised NRC Form 398. These changes will include the removal of the GFE information. So what is that? Okay, let's go back to the NRC Form 398. We will get back into the GFEs. So here you can see, okay, this is what type of application is. If you're new, just type new. And then on the box 12, it says GFEs and deferrals, excusal waivers. This is the part where you fill out when you take the exam. This is the Generic Fundamentals exam that it usually takes like it's a 4-month long training usually, that prepares you on main 3 categories, which is components, reactor theory, and thermodynamics. So it kind of like gives you all that information to learn more, like, about the components that we use in the nuclear power plants, and it also gives you like a lot of examples and problems. Anyway, so you have to do that. So what are the things that you actually need? So if you are applying for, you need to put like, what's your current position, like on box 18. It's asking you, okay, what are you? What are you doing right now? Your education, if you have, I think, if I remember correctly, if you have a bachelor's or master's, you can apply to become a senior reactor operator. But if you only have like a high school or an associate, I think you can only qualify to become a reactor operator, not a senior reactor operator. Also, you need to take different types of training, right? I think the training process to license reactor operators, it takes 2 years, about 2 years, 24 months. So you have to take training about nuclear power plant fundamentals, plant systems. I think nuclear power plant fundamentals, I don't know if it talks about the GFEs, but there's another training about nuclear power plant fundamentals. I think that one takes around like 4 weeks. I think plant systems takes roughly about 3 weeks. You learn about plant procedures, but you also have to do certain hours in the simulator. So obviously, when you're trying to get your certification, you practice on a simulator. Like, you go to a simulator control room. So it's like if you were to the real control room, right? But it's not a real one. So you go in there and you practice different scenarios. Like, okay, what happens if you have a loss of coolant accident? Like, what are the stuff that you're gonna do? Like, what are the procedures that you will have to do? What's gonna happen? What's happening? Do you need to do something? Is the plan like, doing what it needs to do, is following like all the trip actions that it needs to follow, right? And you need to fill up like this procedure, this form, and show that you know how to, you know, react when a trip happens or there's an issue at the power plant happening, right? So that's what you do in the simulator. If you are gonna be an SRO, so you need to have SRO instruction. So you need to have different types of training, right? And you need to add more information, significant control manipulations. You need to add like your nuclear experience in here. Some people there start as an auxiliary operators and they usually already have taken the GFE. So I don't know, maybe you might wanna say, okay, I already took this GFE and passed, so I don't need to do that anymore. But as of 2021, I think 2022 or 2022, you don't need to take the GFEs anymore, so they're gonna remove that portion. So this information is for renewals only. Something really, really important, like being a reactor operator is a big responsibility, right? So you're dealing with the plant equipment. You're trying to keep the unit safe in a safe condition and bring the reactor, like in case of a trip, making sure that it comes back into a safe condition. Like there's things that are gonna happen. Obviously, you are dealing with a thousand system, like 1,000 components, thousands of components out there. Even though there's maintenance and we are always checking our components, like something can happen. It's very unlikely, but something can happen, right? So we need to make sure that we can bring the plant to a safe condition, that we are always safe. And that's kind of like the job of the reactor operators, making sure that that happens, making sure that we treat the reactor and that we are keeping it safe, right? So here in the signatures in box 28, you can read, it says any false statement or omission in this document, including attachments, may be subject to civil and criminal sanctions, right? So, and this tells you that this is a very serious matter, right? Like if something happens, you can go to jail. This is like a very serious situation. Like you cannot lie in this document and this information. And there are many layers in this document, right, where it will be very hard for you to lie or anything. So there's many layers here of protection, right? But obviously, you have to be an ethic person, caught very, you know, very high ethical standards and everything. So yes, this is not for everybody. But then you have here the qualification statement, the instruction. So here it tells you the instruction, right? Like what type of application are you doing? If it's new, renewal, the GFEs, what are you doing? The education. It gives you like some information on each of the sections, so you can go over that and look at it. Like, okay, this is what I will need. Like, but something very important. Some people think that you need to have like, oh, you need to have a bachelor's in nuclear engineering to become a reactor operator. Like, no, not really. Usually, most reactor operators they are Navy nukes, or they can just get out from high school. They can say, oh, I can become an auxiliary operator, apply at a nuclear power plant to become an auxiliary operator. And then you can jump into, say, okay, I'm interested now in becoming a reactor operator. Or if they're directly hiring for reactor operators and you only have a high school, you can get into the training program very easily. Okay, so we look into that, what we are here for, the GFEs, right? So now, we are talking about the GFE, the Generic Fundamentals Examination for Reactor Operators. And I think this examination is like a very complete examination because you see the different components and how they interact in the nuclear power plant, how they affect it. And they give you like different examples of situations in the power plant. And I think that's really good, especially like if you don't have that much experience. I'm gonna go into, okay. it says here, okay, here for the generic fundamental examinations, they review like 4 main topics. The first one of them is it's gonna be components. The second main topic is gonna be reactor theory, and then the third topic is thermodynamics. The exam itself is comprised of 50 questions, but only 40 of them are gonna be taken directly from the NRC GFEs bank. 5 of those questions are gonna be similar from the ones in the bank, and then you're gonna have 5 new questions. So I think in order to pass the exam, I think in the past you had to have a 90%, but I think now some plans allow you to have like an 80% passing grade on this exam. So now let's go and jump into the pressurized water reactor, GFE, because there's 4 boiling water reactor and pressurized water reactors. Okay, so here we can see the 3 main topics, components, reactor theory, and thermodynamics. And in here you can see like the entire bank with all the questions organized by category. And also you have a past exam. So you can take a look at how an exam looked. So let's take a look at March 2021 exam. So it says U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission Generic Fundamentals Examination, March 2021, PWR. So it says instructions. This examination applies to a typical U.S. pressurized water reactor nuclear power plant. There are 50 multiple choice test items to answer, each having equal point value. There are multiple forms of this examination, each containing the same test items in a random order. Answer all test items using the provided answer sheet, ensuring a single answer is marked for each test item. A score of at least 80% is required to pass this portion of the NRC operator licensing written exam. When you have completed the examination, sign your name under the statement at the bottom of this page. All examination materials will be collected 3 hours after the examination begins, so you only have 3 hours to answer these 50 questions. And here gives you the number of test items and the percentage. Okay, so there are some rules, right? So you need to go over these rules. For instance, the term controlled rod refers to the length of the neutron absorber material that can be positioned by the operator to change core reactivity. Numerical answers are rounded to the nearest whole number unless otherwise indicated. You are provided with an equation sheet and conversion sheet in this examination, and also the steam table and the Moliere diagram I provided by your proctor. Usually when you are not doing like a real exam, you can print your own Moliere diagram and steam table, because usually like my Moliere diagram is laminated and I can just mark things in it and then erase it, so it makes it easier. So I have like this big Moliere diagram that I can mark things on. Okay, so you have your equation sheet, conversions, and then you have all your questions here. So these are example of the questions that you might get, right? But we will go into that in more detail when we go into the examples part. So we saw the past exams. We can also take a look at the entire exam bank. The entire exam bank. So is 1,412 questions from the exam bank. So that's good. We'll have a lot of fun doing that. But let's go to the component section. What are we looking into the component section? The component section is the largest one, especially the part of the sensors and detectors and controllers. Controllers and positioners, this is the largest portion. So you can take a look into valves, sensors and detectors, controllers and positioners, pumps, motors and generators, heat exchangers and condensers, the mineralizers and ion exchangers, breakers, relays, and disconnects. That's what you see in that category. Then you're gonna learn about reactor theory. So you're gonna learn about neutrons, neutron life cycle, kinetics, coefficients, control rods, fission products, poisons, fuel depletion and burnable poisons, and reactor operational physics. You're also gonna learn about thermodynamics. You will learn some thermodynamic units and properties, basic energy concepts, steam, thermal processes, thermocycles, fluid statics and dynamics, heat transfer and heat exchangers, thermal hydraulics, core thermal limits, and brittle fracture and vessel thermal stress. So you will learn about that. So I think that's everything that we can talk about, like the GFEs, but in the next videos, I will go over and talk about like each of the sections. I will go and talk, okay, this is the component section, but I would like to go and take a look at, for instance, bulbs. Let's like go in and take a look at all the problems. And I will also show like the stuff that I really, really need to know. Like what is the stuff that I really, really need to know to learn all of these questions, right? And I will show some examples of this. And also the same for sensors and detectors, controllers, positioners, and so on. So we'll start with the bulbs.